Good morning, guys. I hope you're doing well. Well, I'm back with another video on our series on the book of Philippians. Just a reminder, this series isn't going to be deep theological discussions about every nuance within the book, but rather just summaries to help you get a big picture idea of what's going on in each chapter. So that being said, we'll dive right in and get to the next chapter, which is chapter 2. So Philippians chapter 2, I kind of saw three major sections, kind of like I did with chapter 1. The first one is verses 1 through 11. Second one is 12 through 18. And the third one is 19 through 30. So that being said, let's look at the first section, which deals with the idea of humility. Paul in this section, to start chapter 2, begins talking to the church of Philippi about unity within the body of Christ, within the church, that they as a church, as a group of people who meet together to worship God, need to be unified. And he says that starts with humility, putting others first. And that's a pretty big concept. So he says, you need to put others first, just like Christ put you first. And so Paul then moves into this very famous passage here in Philippians 2, 5 through 11. And it's often quoted because it talks about the humility of Christ, how he was God, but he became man so that he could serve us by dying on the cross and taking the payment we deserve, the punishment we deserve for our sin. So it's interesting. I always hear about Philippians 2, 5 through 11 being quoted, but I never hear it in the full context of verses 1 through 4. The idea of Paul's using this as an example to show how we should be humble within the church in order to have unity. I found it all very interesting. So anyway, that's the first section, 1 through 11, that the church needs to be unified, and that starts with humility. In the second section, Paul makes the statement that you need to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. And this may give you pause because you may hear, well, wait a second, work out our salvation? Does that mean we earn our salvation? No, that's not what Paul's talking about in the second section, 12 through 18. 12 through 18, guys, is talking about how we need to work towards sanctification. Sanctification is a big fancy word that just means trying to become more like Christ, trying to become holy without sin. Now, clearly, being human on earth, we're never going to get to a point where we are perfect, but we need to be striving to emulate or be like Christ, who was perfect. The end goal is perfection, recognizing we won't ever get there on earth, but we still need to work towards it. And that's what Paul's talking about in the second section. To work out our faith, work out our salvation with fear and trembling. That we need to be striving to become more like Christ. Double checking my notes. Yeah, there was one more thing. Paul also takes the time to mention in this section that any progress, any fruit you see in this area is not a result of your own efforts, but God working in you. And so it's also important to note that while you are to put forth effort towards being more like Christ, any results you see are the result of God working through you. It's not of your own doing, it is God working in you. I think that makes sense. I hope I said that right. If I didn't, oh well. I hope you understand what I mean. Last section is 19 through 30, and in this section, Paul is talking about two people, Timothy and, I gotta look at it, Epaphroditus. We'll call him Mr. E. Paul's talking about Timothy and Mr. E. Basically, these are two people that the church of that the church in Philippi would have been familiar with. And basically, he's saying that he's sending them back, not because they've done anything wrong or haven't served with Paul well, but he just explains that he wants to send them back on his behalf. Well, Timothy back on his behalf, because it doesn't look like he's going to get to go back as soon as he had hoped. And the other one, Mr. E, he sends back because he knows that they had heard he was sick, that he might have died, and he wants them, and Mr. E himself wants to go back and let everyone know that he is okay. So the last part of chapter 2 kind of closes on a different note, not talking about anything theological, just more practical, that, hey, here's these two guys I'm sending back to you, and here's why. So you know, just so you don't think that they did something wrong. So that's chapter 2, guys, in a nutshell. I hope it all makes sense. I'm sorry I'm a little tongue-tied tonight. I'm tired. It's been a long day, so. Challenge for you guys today is to read chapter 2. Clearly, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. But read it, see if there's something maybe you picked up on that I didn't, or just make sure I'm not totally making it up. All right? Theological note, something to take home with you, some application. Guys, we as Christians are supposed to be trying to become like Christ. We are trying to become sanctified, working towards Christ-like perfection. And we all need to be striving towards that, but I think the big application from this chapter that you should take away comes from the first section, humility. Guys, becoming more like Christ starts with humility. Christ humbled himself to the point of being obedient to the point of death on the cross. That's quite a bit of humility. That's quite humble. We need to be willing to be humble like that as well if we're going to strive to be like Christ, if we're going to make progress in our journey towards Christ-like perfection. So, my point of application is this. Trying to become more like Christ as we're supposed to as Christians starts with humility. So, start there, and then the rest kind of falls into place, or at least starts to. That's all I got today, guys. I hope this all makes sense. Like I said, I'm tired. I'm a little worried. I'm not coming across clearly, but oh well. I trust God. I trust He'll use this one way or the other. So, take care, guys. I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Bye.